Hey everyone, it's Alan Brochstein from New Cannabis Ventures and 420 Investor. I'm here with your weekly update, and I'm going to start with a smile. The last 3 weeks, I've smiled, but it's been hard. I smiled because I have my teeth back, but the market was getting killed. This week, quite the opposite. The market soared, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. My goal today is to get everybody in my audience kind of up to speed with what's going on in the cannabis market. This video is based on a weekly piece that I run at 420 Investor for my subscribers, and I include a link to this week's in the summary, and in that you can also find links to last week's as well. So this was a big week for news. I'm going to get to the big news in just a moment, but I want to talk to you about some of the things I would have covered anyway. So first of all, BDSA came out with August data, and they cover 11 states, and 9 of the 11 states saw sequential declines in August from July. Maybe there's some seasonals, I don't know, but the reality is we are not growing as an industry, and this continues, right? The year-over-year growth is down in certain Western states, the more mature markets, and it's up in a few of the Eastern markets, not Maryland, for example. We wrote a piece on that at New Cannabis Ventures. The other news is Illinois came out with September adult use data. They also came out with medical data. I'm going to cover that next week, though, because it came out. I just published it at New Cannabis Ventures today, and I shared it with my 420 investor crowd today. So in this week's piece, I talked about the adult use sales, and they increased 1% sequentially in September over August, despite one fewer day. So that's really like on a per day basis, 4% better. The year-over-year growth also picked up a little bit by 7%. That's adult use. And then finally, really bad news out of Hi-Fire, which is owned by Fire and Flower in Canada. And that is, they came out with their September estimates based on the full data for September. And they are now looking for a sequential decline of 4.6% to 374 million Canadian. And I think the worst part about that, sometimes you see a decline that's roughly flat if you think about it. It's a little worse than flat. 3.3% would be flat. So a little bit of a decline on a per day basis in September. And the worst part about it is it's up only 7.7% from a year ago. And so I view the Canadian market as being mature and troubled, actually. So that's really the news. But what was the big news this week? Wow, Joe Biden. And some of you may hate him. Some of you may love him. I will put myself in the middle. I don't love him. I don't hate him. But he's been not a good friend to our industry. And maybe for a lot of reasons. Maybe it has something to do with his son. I don't know. But he hasn't really done anything like people were expecting when he became president almost 2 years ago. And poor Kamala, she was supposed to do something. She's done nothing as well. And this week, everybody was surprised, in the media at least. I don't know if out there everybody was. But he came out and he pardoned about 6,500 people for cannabis offenses at the federal level. And these are people that have been arrested for consumption and not for distribution or dealing. And he has pardoned these people, and he's asking for a rescheduling. He didn't give any details on that. And the big criticism was, what about all the states? That's where the action is. So I like that he did this. Is it meaningful? No. Could it become meaningful? Yes. So think about what is really important to the cannabis industry. And yes, it's important. These laws are important. They tend to pick on people of color more than white people. That's another story. But the two things that people are talking about that I think could happen, not necessarily will, but we are on the path to these things maybe happening, and that'd be the elimination of 280E taxation, which is very punitive to our industry if we were to become Schedule 3, 4, or 5 instead of being 1 or changing to 2. And the other thing is, maybe the exchanges will allow U.S. cannabis companies to trade on them. I'm talking about NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. So I would characterize what Biden did is mainly a big nothing. It didn't affect that many people, and it could become very important, but I don't know. All right, so I shared a lot in writing with my subscribers this week. First and foremost, I wrote a piece about Biden lifting the cannabis market, and that's the first one. I also did a financial preview for Tilray Brands, which reported this week. And then I wrote for our monthly newsletter, for the November edition, which will be published at the end of the month, a look at Spring Big, which is a terribly beaten up former SPAC. And then I wrote 3 pieces last Friday, a week ago, that I always write. Cannabis subsector review, which is a chart package where I look at similar sized companies that are in the same subsector and compare the charts. So this week I did just this week, the price returns for this week. Last week I did a quarter, Q3 in total. I also published a model portfolio composition piece where I compare my 2 model portfolios to the Global Cannabis Stock Index by subsector. And then finally, like I'm sharing with you right now, I shared with you last week as well a piece that I wrote, the 420 Investor Weekly Review. Wow, that's a lot, but there's more. I also published the monthly 420 Investor Newsletter, the October edition as well. So that was a lot. The news this week was kind of funny yesterday, right? Everybody applauding. Woo! But the news that I published to my subscribers. So first of all, the stock plunged yesterday, and it was down on the week. But Aurora put out what I think is positive news. I don't have a position there. As you know, I sold it all before they reported in my model portfolios. But they repurchased at a slight discount 23 million of their convertible note. This is not a bad thing unless you thought it should be a larger discount. It's good to pay off your debt with cash. They have a lot of cash, but a lot of debt. And so I don't think it was really that meaningful. It wasn't a reason for the stock to go down on the week, that's for sure. The next one is Air launched Haze concentrates in Florida. The next one is Columbia Care introduced a new edibles brand, Hetty. The next one is CEA Industries added a new client. They didn't specify what exactly the client will be spending with them, but they did credit Merida Capital for this Connecticut-based cultivator. The next one is Charlotte's Web, and they amended their license agreement with Stanley Brothers. Remember, Stanley Brothers used to own them. And they also reached a separation agreement with their former chief operating officer and CFO. Green Lane, this surprised me. I don't really know the full story. I'm trying to find out. But Nick Kovacevic is transitioning from CEO on December 31st to Chief Development Officer. And so he's on the board still. He's not leaving the company. But wow, he was the CEO. That's been a bad stock situation for sure. That's Green Lane. GTI, I didn't see many people talk about this. There was a Cranes article written, though, And I did see the press release, and all I can say is, wow. GTI lost 3 independent directors, and it also lost an employee. And that was in a filing. But the 3 independent directors, it replaced 2 of them. This is unheard of. And they gave as a reason how the company handles personnel issues. And I don't know the exact story, if it had something to do with this officer that left her job, but wow is all I can say on GTI. Ben Kovler controls the company still, and probably will forever. It doesn't really matter who the directors are. He's the director that's most important. Jushi added an independent director and promoted an employee to chief legal officer. State House Holdings moved its distribution in California. Remember that State House used to be Harborside, and they're using Nabis now. Trulieve opened a dispensary in Sierra Vista, Arizona, and they also actually launched the Khalifa Kush in Florida. They talked about it the prior week, but they actually did launch it. Tilt Holdings, and we did a great interview, I think, at New Cannabis Ventures this week. They launched Black Buddha Cannabis in Massachusetts. That's with a person who had an automobile accident, and it's social equity in action. Tilray, they relaunched their oral cannabis solution in Ireland. Woo! But more importantly, they reported their Q1, and I think it was because of Hexo being included that they beat the estimates on, and they did well. They improved 10% sequentially for their cannabis sales, but their overall sales were only in line, I think, with the estimate, and their adjusted EBITDA was only in line. So I listened to that call, and I highly recommend that anybody that wants to own the company or that does own it, listen to the call. They'll not be excited, I don't think. And then finally, Verano opened 2 dispensaries in Florida, and it gives them 61. So what happened this week? We went up. Crazy. Another smile. And, I've talked to my subscribers a lot about what went up, how much, and I warned them on Thursday night, the LPs should not have gone up that much, and they came crashing down on Friday. And I did some trades as well based on my understanding of the news, but I will tell you the truth. I don't really know that much about rescheduling cannabis. I can, is this just Joe Biden playing a political game and not even a great one? Or is it the start of something? If you could help me with that, I can tell you a better answer. But this week, the Global Cannabis Stock Index was up 12.2%, which is a lot more than the S&P 500 was up, about 1% maybe. I don't even think it was up that much. It closed near the lows. It didn't break the lows on Friday, but remember, we gapped up on Tuesday, and we filled that gap, and we got almost down to the lows. The Global Cannabis Stock Index is up, it's down 61.6% year to date. Wow, is that bad? So, we can talk about Joe Biden and what it means, but remember, I've been bullish and wrong about the second half because September was so weak. I still think that the cannabis sector suffers from low valuations and extremely negative investment sentiment. So let me talk about my model portfolios for just a moment. Flying High was up more than 12.2%. It was up 16.1%. And remember, it had a bad September and a great July and a good August. And so now it's down 38.9% year to date, which sounds good compared to how much the market's down, but it kind of defeats the purpose for me to talk about those two at the same time because I'm supposed to make money, period, and I'm losing a lot. So this has been a tough year. And did I see it coming? No. And was I in the hospital for 2 months? Yes. And that was when a lot of the damage happened. But I'm not blaming it on that, but just pointing out. So that was 420 opportunity, but 420 flying high, I mean. But what about 420 opportunity and 420 quality, my other two longer-term focus model portfolios that are measured against the global cannabis stock index? Well, 420 opportunity was up, I just got to find it, 18.8%. 18.8. That's 50% plus above the global cannabis stock index. Was it because I owned all the MSOs that went crazy? No, I'm underweight MSOs. So no. And so that index, I mean, that ETF is now down, I think 53%. I want to make sure I get it right. Yeah, 53% year to date. Again, that's a lot better than the global cannabis stock index, which is down, as I said, 61.6%. So this is good. It's good to be 53 down when the index that you're trying to beat is down 61.6. It's not as good as I hope to be. So it is good, but it's not Allen good. And then 420 quality, which is a little bit different, but pretty much the same, was up a little bit less for the week, 17.9%. And year to date, it's down slightly more at 53.1%. Okay, so let me wrap up now with a talk about this coming week. Monday is Columbus Day. It doesn't matter to the stock market at all. It is a bank holiday, but not a stock holiday. At the same time, it's also Thanksgiving in Canada, and they are closed. Tuesday night, I'm going to have a chat with my subscribers. And on Thursday, Avant Brands, an LP in Canada, will be reporting after the close and hosting a call. It's Q3. So that's really it. I hope you have a great week. Take care.